Have you ever wondered about the environmental impact of World War II, a conflict that reshaped the world? This monumental event in human history not only changed the political and social landscape, but also left a long-lasting, far-reaching impact on the environment. World War II was characterized by global environmental issues on an unprecedented scale. A staggering amount of waste was generated, literally changing the face of the Earth. The remnants of war, abandoned front lines, sunken ships, deserted bases and bombed cities littered landscapes across Europe and Asia. To this day, the monumental task of cleaning up this global waste is yet to be fully accomplished, with areas like Finland and Lapland still bearing these scars. Another significant environmental consequence of World War II was the transit of invasive species. The war necessitated the construction of infrastructure like roads, railways, ports, and airports. These were often built by soldiers, prisoners of war, and forced laborers. This construction introduced invasive species into areas previously untouched by human activity, disturbing the delicate balance of local ecosystems and leading to industrial pollution. The war also led to an unparalleled demand for natural resources. To supply troops and sustain military forces, resources were exploited on a massive scale, causing an environmental imbalance that has had lasting effects. From deforestation to over-extraction of minerals, the war's resource needs laid bare the planet's vulnerability. The fallout from nuclear warfare, another grim legacy of World War II, is perhaps the most chilling. The use of atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki resulted in widespread destruction and long-term radioactive contamination. This nuclear fallout has had enduring effects on human health and the environment. World War II, while pivotal in human history, left an indelible mark on our planet, with effects still being felt today. As we explore the environmental impact of wars, it's crucial to remember that the scars left by these conflicts extend far beyond the battlefield, etching deep into the very fabric of our Earth. Moving forward to the Vietnam War, a conflict that left its own unique and devastating impact on the environment. This war was not only a human catastrophe, but also an ecological disaster. The use of the herbicide known as Agent Orange was a major cause of environmental devastation. This highly toxic compound was sprayed over the verdant jungles of Vietnam, with the aim of defoliating the forests and exposing the enemy. But the environmental cost was colossal. Approximately 17.8% of the total forest area was affected during the war. This resulted in significant soil erosion, loss of forests, and changes in biodiversity. The once lush and green forests were replaced with barren landscapes, leading to flooding and local climate change. The destruction of these habitats also led to the loss of numerous species, some of which were unique to those regions. Moreover, the use of Agent Orange did not just affect the flora, it seeped into the soil and contaminated the food chain. This resulted in the accumulation of harmful contaminants in the bodies of animals and humans alike. The dioxin present in Agent Orange is highly persistent, remaining in the environment for years after being sprayed. This has had a profound impact on the region's fauna and flora, with some species still struggling to recover. The health effects of Agent Orange on the Vietnamese population were devastating. Even more than 4 decades after the end of the war, the soil remains contaminated, causing high rates of cancer, respiratory disorders, and skin conditions among the population. The long-term health effects of this contamination have been passed on to subsequent generations, causing birth defects and other health problems. The legacy of the Vietnam War serves as a stark reminder of the long-term environmental consequences of warfare. It underscores the urgent need for strategies to prevent and mitigate the environmental impacts of war, to protect not only human lives, but also the very ecosystems that sustain us. Fast forward to the recent conflict between Russia and Ukraine, a war that is causing significant environmental damage. This conflict, like those before it, is leaving a significant mark on the natural world, from the air we breathe to the soil that sustains us. Let's start with the basics: air, water, and soil pollution. The invasion has led to extensive pollution in all 3 areas. Explosive weapons used in civil and industrial areas have released harmful substances into the atmosphere. Fires, fuel leaks, and chemical spills have contaminated water sources and the soil, leaving a lasting, damaging impact. But the toll doesn't stop there. The war is also causing significant damage to Ukraine's ecosystems and biodiversity. Forests, protected areas, and habitats of rare and endemic species are being destroyed. It's important to note that Ukraine is home to 35% of Europe's biodiversity. With about 44% of national parks and nature reserves in the conflict zone, the loss of biodiversity could be catastrophic. One of the most alarming aspects of this conflict is the potential for radioactive contamination. Damage to nuclear facilities like the Zaporizhzhia plant poses a risk of releasing radioactive material, which could spread for kilometers. Fires near Chernobyl have already raised radioactive material, reminding us of the long-lasting environmental impacts of nuclear disasters. Lastly, let's talk about food security. Ukraine is a major global exporter of wheat and corn. The destruction of agricultural land and infrastructure affects food production, threatening food security both locally and in regions that rely on these exports. Wars are not only battles between opposing forces, they are battles against nature, against our shared environment, against our collective future. The environmental toll of the Russia-Ukraine war is a grim reminder of the long-lasting impacts of conflict on our planet. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine underscores the urgent need for conflict resolution strategies that consider the environment. And what about the most precious resource on Earth, water? Wars have a profound impact on water resources, causing contamination, damage to water infrastructure, and threatening human health and livelihoods. When conflict erupts, the immediate concern is often for human life and property, but the environmental damage can be just as devastating, albeit less immediately apparent. Imagine for a moment a river that once flowed clear and clean, now turned murky and toxic due to chemical leaks from bombed factories. Or consider the groundwater, a hidden but essential resource, now contaminated by the remnants of explosive weapons. These are not mere hypotheticals, but realities faced in war-torn regions, where access to clean water becomes a luxury instead of a basic right. The damage extends beyond the immediate contamination. The infrastructure that delivers water, such as pipes, pumps, and treatment facilities, often suffers collateral damage in wars. This can lead to prolonged water shortages, even after the conflict has ended. In some cases, the destruction is intentional, as water resources become strategic targets in warfare. The consequences of these actions are far-reaching. Contaminated water can spread diseases like cholera, typhoid, and dysentery, leading to widespread health crises among populations already traumatized by war. Additionally, the lack of clean water can disrupt agriculture, leading to food shortages and economic instability. It's a ripple effect, one that continues to touch lives long after the last gunshot has echoed. The environmental scars left by war are deep, and water is no exception. But there's more to it than just the physical damage. Water is a symbol of life, flowing through our planet's veins, nurturing every form of existence. When wars contaminate these life-giving streams, they are, in essence, attacking the very core of life itself. So let's remember this as we ponder the environmental impacts of war. It's not just about the trees that are felled, the soil that's eroded, or the air that's polluted. It's also about the water, the life-giving essence that becomes a casualty in the brutal theater of war. Water, the source of life, becomes yet another casualty in the theater of war. So, as we've seen, the impact of wars on nature is profound and long-lasting. Wars are not only a human tragedy, but also an environmental catastrophe. They often leave behind a trail of destruction that extends far beyond the battlefield, affecting ecosystems and biodiversity for years, sometimes even decades, after the conflict has ended. Consider the environmental after-effects of World War II. A war that stretched across continents, it left a legacy of global waste, from abandoned front lines to bombed cities in Europe and Asia. It introduced invasive species into untouched areas, and the high demand for natural resources led to an environmental imbalance that we're still grappling with today. Then we have the Vietnam War, a conflict that brought about extensive environmental devastation due to the use of the highly toxic herbicide, Agent Orange. It resulted in a loss of nearly 1/5 of the total forest area, leading to soil erosion, flooding, local climate change, and changes in biodiversity. The accumulation of contaminants in the food chain still affects the health of the local population, with high rates of cancer and other health disorders. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine too has had severe environmental consequences. From air, water and soil pollution due to fires and chemical leaks, to the destruction of habitats of rare and endemic species, the war is causing lasting damage to Ukraine's rich biodiversity. The potential for radioactive contamination due to damage to nuclear facilities adds another layer of complexity to the environmental toll of this war. Moreover, the destruction of agricultural land threatens not only Ukraine's food security, but also that of other regions that depend on its exports. In conclusion, wars have a profound and lasting impact on nature. They reshape landscapes, destroy ecosystems, and threaten biodiversity. They contaminate our air, water, and soil, leaving behind a legacy of pollution and waste that can take years, if not decades, to clean up. Wars not only shape human history, but also our planet's future. Let's ponder on the environmental cost of conflict, a price too high for our world to bear.